Hello, welcome to this Understanding React series. This is episode 6. Why didn't my state update immediately? So in this video we're gonna try to recreate how my set state more or less reacts my set state work. And we're gonna build again a toy version for ourselves, more or less, to try to understand. So let's go. So on last video we had a function increment for the classic button that counts. Count is equal to count plus 1 and then my update, remember? And this my update was a function that once we do something to the state of the page, like increment a count variable, which is displayed on the HTML, it calls this my update, so it re-renders the DOM, so it increments the counter. So React does that update call for us, and that is the setState. So let's check it. Let's go. So let me delete the increment function and again start with the old constructor props and we are still on the old ways when React was with classes. We have not graduated from this yet, and then we get to the modern version of React. Increment, and then we declare the increment function with the arrow notation. so it freezes what this is. Remember that video? Now no one remembers my video because no one sees my videos. Before set. So it's more or less like I am talking to myself. Beautiful. Before, and then we actually run this dot set state, and this is a built-in function. Why does it ask me to do that? I don't know. All right, this dot set state, we call this function, and we need to pass in an object because state is an object with key value pairs or one key value pair. Count, and then this dot state dot count plus 1, and then console.log, and then after set state, and then comma this dot state dot count. So we are trying to console log how the state is, and then incremented and then see how it is after. Then we need to add a render function that gets called for us, because it's kind of like the built-in, and then in parentheses, so we can do multiple lines, no? Div, and this return JSX we already saw why. It's just one div, and then inside of it, because this is the type div, and then inside the children p. If you have been watching my videos, you would completely understand this, just like I do. Well, lol. Just kidding. I don't understand this. But we have been trying to get there, and yes, this was part of another video. Last video. And then the button has this text, which is a children of this type button object, and this has props. Remember last video, this dot increment, we pass it in. So this is the important part of declaring it with the arrow. So this, because this onClick gets sent to the browser. The browser over here, it's going to store it somewhere in its memory, that when clicked, it will run a function we passed in. But since it will be run since over here, this will be the object from where it's being called from. So that's why this is important to declare it like this, because it freezes this to be this object. Right? Remember that? How many? Lot. Now we just need to create root. From where? From a document dot get element by ID root dot render our mighty component counter. Simple enough. There we go. Let me get rid of this. So this gets rendered on top because it gets inserted as children to this div ID root inside. Later these two. Let me get rid of this intro part. All right. Moment of truth. Let me open the console. Control S. Add one. Before setState, then we add one. Then after. There. Add one. Before setState 0. Then we change it to +1, and then after, and then still a 0. But here it displays the 1. So what is going on? And what happens if I click again? Okay, so now Before it's 1, then I click, converts to 2, or maybe not. What I am thinking is this gets passed as a whatchamacallit, as asynchronous function, so the rest gets run immediately. So I'm assuming that's why 1 1, and then when we finally get to the changing state, then it adds it to 2, and then it changes my virtual DOM. But hey, I'm learning this, so I don't know. Let's keep going. Okay, so there's one thing. Here's another weird one, or not weird one. Here's another thing. So now let's increment 2. So let's go by 2 by 2. So this dot set state, and then I'm just gonna copy this. So maybe my whole assumptions are wrong. I don't know. You tell me. Let me save this. Let me add one. 0 0. Added one. Might as well put here add 2, no? Add 2, because we're gonna increment, we're gonna set state to whatever it was plus 1, and then here again this state to whatever it was plus 1. Let's see, and we already saw that 1, and then 0 0, and then this 1, not 2. Okay, let's do it again. Click. Nope. So what is going on? So these are two symptoms, or these two symptoms we just saw are the same thing. This dot state, this isn't updating on the line after we call setState, which means the second call, this one, reads the same old value as the first. So this one reads 0, and this one reads 0. So when they get run, it's 0 plus 1 and set count to 1. And then run this one again. 0 plus 1 is 1, so put count again. Oops. So it's just replacing the same one. Yeah. So to see how this works, let's build it again, like a toy version of it. Oops. Let's do a toy version. Now let's start with let state equals to count 0, and let kiwi how is that pronounced? That is a very tough word. mySetState. Push console.log queued length comma QEW QBUBU fancy little simber state right now. Comma state right now, comma, and then oops, JSON dot stringify state for this. So right now nothing, this is too small. So right now nothing happens to the state. We just console.log out stuff. Now we need something to work through the queue. So let's do that. My flush, we are gonna name it. Let's start by console logging flush processing, then queue length updates. Then we loop through the queue. And then a callback function inside the queue. So for each element in the queue, update console.log state, comma, JSON stringify state, and then clear the queue. So take each request, merge it into state, and notice state dot 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 state and dot 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 update. That's why setState only needs the keys we're changing. The rest is carried over. So now let's write in mySetState the part that makes it later instead of now. So after the console.logging, we need to add a let scheduled false. And then if not scheduled, scheduled equals true, then the asynchronous stuff promise dot resolve dot then and the callback my flush scheduled equals false. Save. So a couple of tricky lines. This tricky line, the promise and the resolve and the then, means run this function, this callback, after the current function finishes. It's not a timeout, like wait something. No, it's as soon as possible, but just not now, when the current function finishes. And scheduled means we only book that once. Then my setState calls in a row, one flush. And that is the whole idea. Requests go in a list, the queue, and the list gets processed once all our code is done. So let's test this out. My setState, and then an object inside with count, state dot count plus 1. And then let's run this. Moment of truth. Save. So there it is. Both times we queued, state is count 0. The second call, the same 0. The second call read the same 0 as the first. So the state becomes 1. Then the state becomes 1. So that's just like we talked about in this example. Huh? All right, so then how do we fix it? So the answer is to queue a function. No? Here's the magic. For each update, and then if the type of and the parameter we pass in is a function, then we do this. State is equal to this object. Dot state, comma, update state. And leave the old version as an else. So we can do both. Like this. So if it's a function, we pass in call it with the current state and use what comes back. So then here in my setState, we do this. We pass in a function. And we can name this parameter whatever. Let me rewrite it. Previous state. And then count previous dot count plus 1. Control save. Count 1, count 2. So same queue, same state, same flush. State was 0 the both times we queued. The difference is that the second function didn't run until the first one finished. And when it ran, previous was already count equals 1. Okay, so now let's comment out all this. This is the other way around. I always forget. Comment out all this, and then let's uncomment the React version. And then this dot set state, and here we pass in previous state. And then here, the tricky part is here we need a parenthesis. So we return an object or something like that. All right, moment of truth, console. Let's see if it works. Nope. Sorry, it's not working because I am not using the old state. Count. This dot state dot count is wrong. It's now just prev dot count. And then prev. And previous, I just named it like that. Previous state. We could do whatever name we want. Let's see now if it adds 2. There we go. So at the beginning I said that setState might be asynchronous, like get sent somewhere, but not really. So it's queued. So the things inside are queued and then flushed at the end of the current work. And why? Why not just change it immediately? Well, because of the last video thingy, where when we change state, it has to render the DOM again. It has to change these little 6. And if we have lots of things changing. And if we changed state in 2 or 3 or 4 things and did it immediately, the whole re-rendering thing gets, I don't know what it gets. but that's the reason. It changes the state and then renders it when it's done. So queued, it's one flush and one render with all, let's say, 3 changes already applied. So that's batching. So it's not an optimization. It's the reason the whole queue exists. Or so I am told. Anyways, that will be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.